All right, let's get another Chevrolet Sportsman Central update. What would the Patriots have to pay DeAndre Hopkins? Sports Illustrated's Burt Breer speculating that DeAndre Hopkins market isn't anywhere close to what the Cardinals were set to pay him this season before they cut him. He wrote, quote, the free agent was about $19.5 million this season, making Breer's speculation mean that he's looking at maybe $10 million on another team. Adam Schefter had this to say about the teams in the mix for Hopkins' services, and this is Carrying the Load brought to you by the Chevy Silverado. Quotes from Schefter. I think we're really talking about KC, Buffalo, New England, and Cleveland. New England could be interesting. New England has a need there, but what I keep going back to, in Houston, the man that traded DeAndre Hopkins was then Texans head coach Bill O'Brien. I don't think those two individuals particularly cared for one another, so now it's okay. I mean, it may be that one that makes the most financial sense, and if it is, then, of course, everybody can make it work. But I just don't think we start out thinking that New England is going to be a top option, though in the end, it could end up being the place that he lands, end quote. Okay, well, yeah, so it could happen. It might not happen. That's what he said. That's what we're doing here.
Yeah. A roller coaster of emotions.
So it's all over the place.
You're in, you're out. This fence is very hard to stay on.
Well, which side do we land on here? I'm going to ask you about DeAndre Hopkins, Mike.
So everything that I heard around the draft and since is that he's looking for every last dollar. Now, the Odell Beckham Jr. contract really screws this up because I think teams thought, well, we can get him for less, and all of a sudden he's getting 15, 16, whatever $1 million it is, and Hopkins looks at it and says, I'm way better than OBJ. OBJ is never on the field, for God's sakes. Last year I played in 10 games? I caught 70 passes. If I'm DeAndre Hopkins, I'm saying, give me that money and then some. The problem for him now is there aren't very many teams that have a ton of money at this point. Not that you can't do whatever you want with the salary cap, but just from a sheer standpoint of like, do we want to do this and the other thing to get this guy in? That's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, you could, like, for example, the Odell Beckham contract, it's $15 million fully guaranteed with the Ravens for 1 year, but they have so many void years tacked onto that.
It's 7 years.
It's just under $4 million this year in terms of his cap hit. So again, you can do whatever you want with the cap. The Patriots have, I think, just over $13 million. They could make it work if they wanted to.
Absolutely.
Question is, do you want to? I would want to. I think this receiver group might be the thing that holds their offense back this year. We'll see what it looks like with a new offensive coordinator. Some of these guys may take massive leaps, Tom, but I think you can get a guy like that who had 700 yards in just 9 games and a horrible offense with a bad quarterback last year for a good chunk of that. That's a pretty good player that would do a lot of damage, I think, here in New England.
And if I'm not mistaken, would he be reuniting with Trace McSorley?
There were like 4 quarterbacks who played for the Cardinals last year. There
So
were
they could get him and Trace back together. Look, the point is well taken. If you want to give him $3 or $4 or $5 million this year and kick it into next year where the Patriots have a massive amount of cap space, to do what, though? To get you from 8 or 9 wins to 10 or 11 wins? To maybe tread water? To bring him into an offense that you spent 2022 looking at and going, he might be good, but we can't tell because the offense is a mess.
What?
So to me, just generally, Giles, I don't think this team is one piece away from anything significant.
But the other part I get to, though, is you're trying to figure out what you have in Mac Jones in his 3rd year in the league. So part of it is just trying to get him a number 1 threat as a wide receiver. Doesn't that at least give you a better idea of what Mac Jones is? If you bring him?
Yes, it does. But is he that guy, and will he assimilate quickly enough, and does he fit nicely enough into the offense? Or is he a pain in the ass here and doesn't practice very often, and you get to a point where Bill O'Brien's going, look, just put Devontae in there because I thought he was practicing today, but DeAndre's not because DeAndre hates practice. So we're going to do this. To me, Occam's razor, the simplest solution, the most obvious solution is the easiest solution. Did I just make something up?
You did,
I might have.
I think.
That's Curran's razor.
Okay, so
no one.
Look, if they had him, he obviously changes the calculus for them because you have to account for him. He may not be the player he was 2 or 3 years ago, but he still would come in and be immediately your best wide receiver, unless Tyquan Thornton continues to look phenomenal throughout the course of training camp, mini camps, Tuesday practices, whatever. They don't even practice on Tuesdays unless they're playing on Thursday.
Great film session.
But still looks good.
But you know what I mean. So, but there's also a culture aspect to this, and Tom brought it up, the not wanting to practice. It goes beyond that with him. There's some other stuff as well. In many ways, he's reminiscent of Jadeveon Clowney. Clowney has the same sort of baggage, and everybody looks at Clowney and goes, that guy, remember the one time in college when he took Taylor Lewan's helmet off, and they want that guy. That guy hasn't been in the pros.
But what baggage do you mean, like specifically? Is it practice related? It's not that he's a bad guy.
No,
it's just at their level of,
right.
I don't do this during the week.
Yeah, and what does that send? What sort of message does that send to everybody else, including someone young and impressionable and phenomenal, even though he's just in his second year in Tyquan Thornton?
I would hope that he would be a little different under Bill Belichick than it was under Cliff Kingsbury, though. Like that's the other thing.
But he was that way under Bill O'Brien.
Yeah.
Well, Bill Belichick might be different. We know there's some mutual respect there between those two. I just look at it, if you are a team that is looking at 8 or 9 wins again this year, and maybe not making the postseason again for the third time in 4 years, and this guy makes you 1 win better or 2 wins better, I mean, that's a massive hit. That is the postseason or not. That, to me, is the difference between a semi-successful, at least, season and not. That could be the difference between guys on this coaching staff having jobs with this team next year or not. This is where you are as a franchise. It's all well and good, and I think it is really important, maintaining culture. I think that's critical. We know Bill Belichick wants to do that. It's also important to be good, and this guy helps you be good and be good quickly, in my opinion.
You just like wide receivers.
But they're turns out they're kind of important.
Yeah.
If you look at every good team in the NFL, they have good passing games.
The most important aspect of this team had absolutely nothing to do with the pass catchers, and it won't be this year. This team is going to be so far better than you think just because of the offensive coordinator.
But who did they really improve upon from 2021 when Josh McDaniels was here in terms of their weaponry? Devontae Parker?
Jonnu Smith is out.
He's gone.
And you got Mike Gesicki
Okay.
in.
Yeah, I'll give you that
Okay,
one.
that's going to be a better one.
Yep.
Tyquan Thornton's going to be here and be a better player than, Kendrick Bourne will return to be a Kendrick Bourne.
Yes, but they still weren't good enough offensively that year. They won 10 games and they didn't have any juice.
Right.
This guy gives you some juice for the first time in like 6 years. The last time you were good.
I don't see juice as being a stat.
If you bring Hopkins on, by the way, then with the numbers that you have at wide receiver, you're also sort of squeezing, legitimately, even though I've been making fun of the phenomenal comment, but you're squeezing playing time from someone like Tyquan Thornton because you're going to look at it and say, well, Devontae does this well. We paid all this money for Juju. Now we brought in Hopkins. Now all of a sudden, where are his snaps coming from?